Between Kodai Senga being an ace and a lot of pitching prospects on the way, do the New York Mets have more pitching than we think? I'll discuss that more on today's edition of Locked On Mets.
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're watching Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. If you want to find any of my work, follow me on Twitter at FinkelsteinRyan. You can also find some of my writing at justbaseball.com, where I work as the managing editor. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more right now. New customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed by visiting fanduel.com/lockedon to get started. On Thursday, Kodai Senga was absolutely brilliant. And I'll tell you what, there's no more question about what he can bring to this team moving forward. There's no more saying, all right, Senga's good, but you have to go out and get an ace that can be better than him so that the Mets can take off. Yes, they're going to need a number two. They might need a number 2 and a number 3 this offseason. But they don't need to get an ace because Kodai Senga is proving that he is an ace. He's brilliant. And what he's done his last 2 starts, to me, really cements that case because here's a guy who was like 14 starts now where he's given up 3 earned runs or less, which is a remarkable stat. But it's how he did it these last 2 outings. It's one outing where the guy had no feel for his pitches. He was spiking ghost forks. His fastball, the catcher would be setting up low, it's coming in high. Setting up inside, it's coming outside. Just no control of what he was pitching and what he had in his arsenal. Nothing. One of those starts, very reminiscent, obviously stakes way different, but reminiscent to Jacob deGrom against the Dodgers in 2015, Game 5. Where we knew from the jump, if you're watching that game, Jacob deGrom doesn't have it. And yet he found his way through the start. Same thing with Kodai Senga a couple starts ago. The question was, how is he going to bounce back from that? He put up a good line altogether. He avoided some damage. You could say he was fortunate. You could say it was a guy that just gutted his way through a start and showed what he's made of. Was he going to bounce back and be dominant again? And he was against the Diamondbacks. He allowed just 2 hits, 2 walks, and struck out 10. Another double-digit strikeout performance from Kodai Senga. Another performance where he only gives up 2 hits. Tying, was it Sid Fernandez, I believe, with 6 from a Mets rookie starts where they've allowed 2 hits or less. I believe it was Sid Fernandez. If it's somebody else, I apologize. This is off the top of my head from what I remember on Twitter earlier, on Thursday when I first saw it. But for Kodai Senga, he did tie another Mets rookie with that stat of 6 starts, 2 hits allowed or less in the season. And he earned his 11th win in the start because the Mets just decided, after I foolishly posted a podcast on Tuesday about why this was the week for the Mets to lose, and playing spoiler against the D-backs and the Reds didn't really matter. And it was more important to bank some losses, to get yourself ready to play spoiler against the teams in your division down the stretch. The Mets said, no, we own the Diamondbacks this year. They ended up finishing their season series 6-1 against the Arizona Diamondbacks, and they won all 3 games after that podcast I posted. Regardless, back to Senga and what he's done this year, his ERA now is at 2.95. He's got it under 3. The only starters with better ERAs this year is Garrett Cole, Justin Steele, and Blake Snell. That's top 5 pitcher in baseball stuff. He has 191 strikeouts and 155 in the 3rd innings pitched. Now, I don't think Kodai Senga is going to win the Cy Young. But is he going to finish in the top 3? I believe so. I think the race right now is Justin Steele, Blake Snell, and Kodai Senga. Not in that order because Justin Steele gave up 6 runs tonight in a loss, and now his ERA is in the 2.7s, where Snell's is in the 2.4s. But Kodai Senga is right there with these guys when it comes to his season-long stats. And I'm looking at next year and thinking, all right, if you pencil Kodai Senga into that one spot, it's not that bad. Now, you still wonder who's going to be in that 2 slot, and the Mets have a 6-man rotation right now that you would not want going to next season, but that's what they're going to roll with, and it's Senga, Quintana, Lucchesi, Peterson, McGill, Budo. Not necessarily in that order, but that's where the Mets are. And with that, according to Anthony DiComo, there's going to be 2 starts left this year for Senga. One against the Marlins in Miami next Wednesday. Big ballpark. Good chance to keep the ball in the yard. Maybe rack up some strikeouts, continue to improve his case in both the Cy Young and the Rookie of the Year race. Then following Wednesday against the Marlins again at home. He needs 9 more strikeouts to get to 200. He could get that in his next start. He needs 14 and 2/3 innings pitched to get to 170. That might not happen. I think the Mets are still going to be playing a little bit cautious on Senga because you want to get him through this year healthy. And he'll finish with 29 starts if DiComo is correct and he only has 2 left. Looking at his baseball savant, there's one thing that jumps out with Kodai Senga, and that is his run value. Okay? For those of you who aren't aware what run value means, it's the run impact of an event based on runners on base, outs, balls, and strike count. Okay? So essentially, if Kodai Senga is sitting in a 3-2 count and he throws a ghost fork to strike out a batter and there was 2 runners in scoring position, that is going to increase his run value significantly. Now, if he's ahead in the count 0-2 and he throws a hanging sweeper and a guy rips it for a double, that's going to significantly decrease his run value. So it's this sliding scale, and it's based on any event, any batted ball event, or of course a strikeout or a walk, and what the situation is with runners on base. Now, the best way to describe it though is it's run value added to your team. So Kodai Senga's pitching run value is 24 on the season. That ranks in the 98th percentile. That's when you put all the pitches together. He's saving the Mets that many runs. Now you look at the breakdown. His fastball run value of 19 is in the 99th percentile. Now, the way they break that up is fastball, off-speed, breaking pitches. So fastball for Kodai Senga means his fastball and also his cutter, the hard offerings that he has. And those pitches have him in the 99th percentile. His off-speed run value, that's his ghost fork. His run value of 10 is in the 98th percentile. You look at his breaking run value, his breaking pitches, -2, he's in the 34th percentile. Slider, sweeper, curveball, not good offerings for Kodai Senga. But still, you look at what he's done this season, and he's finding his way through starts without giving up runs. ERA, everyone loves that. And he's got a pitch in his ghost fork that's arguably the best strikeout pitch in baseball from a starting pitcher. This year, his ghost fork has a whiff percentage against of 60%. So when a batter swings at that pitch, they swing through it 60% of the time. Among pitchers that have been used in a minimum of 150 plate appearances this year. So that really does kind of narrow the field of starting pitchers. That whiff percentage is the best mark in the game. The 2 that are behind him is Spencer Strider's slider, 56.7%, and Blake Snell's curveball at 54.9%. He has a top 5 pitch in baseball. He is racking up innings, racking up strikeouts, and pitching like an ace, wire to wire. And it's gotten better even the more and more he's gotten acclimated. So moving forward, Kodai Senga is not an issue in this rotation. Having an ace is not an issue in this rotation. The question is filling out 2 through 5, and on your depth chart, 2 through 8. And right now we're getting a chance to look at a lot of them who are on the 40. Can anybody from that group outside of Quintana, who's still the free agent acquisition you have for one more year, can any of those other 4 guys assert themselves? I want to talk about David Peterson and his start tonight and how he continues to try to make a case for himself Just a minute before we do, today's episode is brought to you by Jase Medical. Modern medical care and treatment are important, but our global supply chains are fragile. Things like pandemics, natural disasters, and foreign travel may cut you off from the treatment you need. Jase Medical is your solution. Just fill out their online form, and one of their board-certified physicians will review it to determine whether medications are safe and appropriate. Then, they send your prescriptions to one of their partner pharmacies, where your Jase order will be filled and mailed directly to your home. Not only this, you can send your physician a message for answers to treatment-related questions anytime. Everyone should be empowered to care for themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected. That's why Jase Medical offers the Jase case. Save more than $360 by getting these life-saving antibiotics with Jase Medical, plus an additional $20 off by using the code LOCKEDON at checkout on jasemedical.com. Again, that's Jase, Jase, medical.com for an additional 20% off when you use the promo code Locked On at checkout. David Peterson took them out against the Cincinnati Reds on Friday night, and he racked up double-digit strikeouts. David Peterson is, I think, the most frustrating player for me to watch this season, partially because I was so wrong on him, but more so because I still feel like I'm so right on him, because this stuff is there. You watch Tyler McGill pitch, and you wonder if this stuff is there. Yes, he could have stretches where he throws the ball well. His last 5 starts, he's got a 2.77 ERA. He's racking up some innings too, helping the team. But I still think that Tyler McGill's ceiling is pretty much the role he's in now. A guy that sits in the 6th or 7th spot on your depth chart going into a season, who, when guys go down, becomes your 5th starter. David Peterson said going into the season he had the ceiling of being a number 3 on a good team, because this stuff is there, and we saw it against the Reds. First inning, 1-2-3. Second inning, gives up 2 hits, then gets what would have been a double play ball if Noel V. Marte is not just so fast. But then he picks Marte off first base. So, gets himself that out he needs, and then gets a strikeout to get out of the inning. Third inning, 1-2-3, gets 2 strikeouts. Fourth inning, works around a walk with 2 strikeouts. Fifth inning, gives up a hit, gets a strikeout. Then there's an error made by Ryan Finkelstein, who's playing third base for the first time at the big league level. Didn't look great at the position in this game. We'll see moving forward how he can continue to fare at that spot, because when you look at the minor leagues and Luis Angel Acuna and Jet Williams, there might be better options on the way for second base. So if Brett Beatty continues to struggle, Mark Vientos doesn't establish himself, particularly with the glove and even with the bat. But, can he ever play third base at a consistent basis at the big leagues is definitely in doubt. Ronnie Mauricio at third base could be an option. So it's good to see him out there. That's just a side note before we get back into what David Peterson did. But you look at Peterson in that 5th inning. Okay, so again, gives up a hit, gets a strikeout. There's an error made. All right, then a wild pitch, scores a run. But then he settles back in. He strikes out 2 to stop the bleeding. There's a pitcher in there that could work his way out of jams, could limit the damage, could get the big strikeout when he needs it. It's just a matter of tapping into that guy more often. And then the 6th inning, he unraveled. Gives up a leadoff hit, then a 2-run homer on a just really bad changeup that was right there in the zone for Spencer Steer. And, all of a sudden, Mets are losing 3-0. Now, he did get a pair of outs, but then allowed a hit and a walk, and, he's pulled from the game with 2 outs in the 6th inning. Final line, 5 2/3, 6 hits allowed, 2 walks, 3 runs, 2 of them earned, 10 strikeouts. His whip on the season is 1.59. Remember, whip is walks and hits over innings pitched. So it's dangerously close. It's closer to 2 base runners in an inning than 1 for David Peterson. And that's the problem. Walks way too many, gives up too many hits. But you see the strikeouts, and the stuff is there. don't know if he's ever going to tap into it all. Now, you look at the rest of this new 6-man rotation the Mets are going to roll with to close out the year. And Jose Quintana is the one guy you don't even have to question going to next season. You feel great about him being your number 3. I'd say you feel good about him being your number 3. Great if he's your number 4. But regardless, he can pitch for you. He can make starts. He's going to be a quality piece in your rotation. So you got 2 of the 5 spots you feel good about. Now in this current 6-man rotation, you got Joey Lucchesi, who's pitching to a 2.83 ERA and 7 starts this year. He's been good at the big league level. Jose Butto, 3.46 ERA and 26 innings. McGill, last 5 starts, as I mentioned, 2.77 ERA. Now against the Reds, Pete Alonso in this game, he tied the game with his 45th home run of the season, bottom of the 6th. So the Mets had life momentarily. And then Grant Hartwig gives up a 2-run homer, and the Mets end up losing. The bullpen has to get figured out, of course. But when you go into next season and you're just looking at the depth chart in the organization, and it's Senga, Quintana, feel good about. And then you wonder, David Peterson, Joe Lucchesi, Jose Butto, Tyler McGill, can one of those guys establish themselves as a quality starting pitcher? And again, based on stuff, I look towards David Peterson. Based on results this year, maybe I look at Joey Lucchesi as a guy that is an MLB veteran, has logged a lot of innings, and maybe just mentally is better at competing. I don't know. Can any of those guys establish themselves? Because if they can, then you look at the minor league system, and there is a laundry list of names that could be factoring into the mix as soon as next season. So then if 1 or 2 of those guys hit, all of a sudden, the Mets rotation, not as much of a problem as everyone thinks. But there's still a lot of ifs in that equation. Maybe and probably too many ifs. But I want to go through them and explore them in the next segment as we look at some of these pitching prospects that are really, really exciting. Before we get to that, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready for the NFL season with incredible offers from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Plus, all customers who bet $5 will get $100 off NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Now is the best time to join FanDuel. The app is easy to use, and you can bet on everything from the spreads to player props and more. This weekend, the New York Giants are playing the Arizona Cardinals. That's in Arizona, I believe. Giants are the favorites, though. 4.5-point favorites. Speaks more to the Cardinals than the Giants, I think. But hey, if you want to lay a little money on the G-men, maybe they can win there. I think they were minus 220 when I checked at FanDuel when it comes to the money line. So maybe you don't trust them to cover those 4.5 points. Hey, just take them on the money line and see. You could also parlay it. So you can take the Giants to win the game and then look at the over on Saquon Barkley's rushing yards or total yards. So there's a lot of ways that you can play it. Now, if you're not a Giants fan, you want to look at the Jets. They are an 8.5-point dog against the Cowboys on the road. But you know what? Jets surprised all last week when they won after Aaron Rodgers went down. So maybe they can at least cover. If you want to get in on any of the action, though, visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn and kick off the NFL season with an offer you won't want to miss. FanDuel, an official partner of the NFL. The New York Mets play the Cincinnati Reds at 7:10 Eastern Time tonight. Catch every pitch of the Mets hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search Mets. Now, when I look at the Mets rotation moving forward, what excites me is the pitching prospects on the way. And one of them, who I will be completely frank and honest, was not on my radar at all 2 weeks ago, who has suddenly really burst onto the scene, is Joander Suarez. He did not allow a run again. Okay, so if you're not familiar with Suarez's story, first start out in Double-A, goes 6 innings without allowing a hit. Second start in a doubleheader where it's only a 7-inning game, he actually completes the no-hitter. 7 no-hit innings. So through his first 2 starts, 13 innings, he did not allow a hit. Third start, he does allow 3 hits and walk 2, but still no earned runs. So through 18 innings in Double-A, he's sporting a 0 ERA. He also has 19 strikeouts and a whip of 0.39 because, again, he only just allowed hits in this past game. That's a pitcher that suddenly is going to have to be added to the 40-man roster to protect him from getting poached by another team who could very well find himself in the big leagues next season because of that, because he's on the 40. And if the roster puts you in a position where you have to call on a guy, it could be Suarez. Beyond that, though, Mike Vasil's in AAA. And he had a great start on Thursday. Now, he does not need to be protected from the Rule 5, so he might not be on the 40, but he's still the closest to the big leagues. And on Thursday, he went 6 innings, allowed 2 earned on 3 hits and 2 walks, but he struck out 10. Numbers have not been great in AAA for Vasil. His ERA over 5, but no one's numbers are good in that league. So you have to look at it and say, well, he has had a lot of really great games and great starts, obviously. So Vasil is a pitcher that I certainly think could be in that conversation come spring training to be pitching for a job. Whether he would actually get it or not, I'd still be doubtful of, but you really never know. He is knocking on the door in a sense. Beyond him, Dominic Hamel has been sort of lockstep until this promotion from Vasil when it comes to their journeys through the minor leagues. And so he's a guy that will be in AAA next year, who's pitching a full season in AA this year and excelling. I mean, the ERA of 3.85 doesn't jump out, but the 160 strikeouts and 124 innings does. And he went 5 scoreless on Friday night in AA, allowed 2 hits, 2 walks, struck out 8. Really good performance. Finally, you have Christian Scott, who has been great all year. You have Blade Tidwell, who has the highest upside of any of these guys, and Tyler Stewart, who spent the first half of this year as the minor league ERA leader. So there's a lot of names that I just rattled through there. And between Vasil, Hamel, Scott, Tidwell, Stewart, now Suarez, you got 6 pitching prospects in AA or higher who have shown some promise here. Can 2 of those 6 become good starting pitchers in the big leagues? 33% chance that you get 2 of the 6. That'd be massive. Now, let's just add David Peterson into that mix of candidates to be starters over the next 3 to 5 years. He has the pure stuff to do it. Throw in Jose Butto as a guy that now seems to be pitching himself to stay on the 40-man roster. He's got full team control. Joe Lucchesi, I think, could be a decent arm for the Mets next season. Tyler McGill, I can't completely forget about. He does have control. But Butto's got more years of control. Maybe you do throw McGill with Butto. So, all right, add all of those guys in that you have control of. Peterson, Butto, McGill. Then the prospects, Vasil, Hamel, Scott, Tidwell, Stewart, Suarez. It's 9 arms. Can 3 of them be quality starters over the next 3 to 4 years? Because if the answer is yes, and you still have Kodai Senga, well, now how much of a pitching problem will the Mets have? Especially with all the depth that those guys who maybe aren't starters or aren't quality big league starters or don't make the most of their early opportunities, they still provide depth. So yes, the Mets can go out and they can sign Yoshinobu Yamamoto and feel pretty confident just roll into the season if they wanted to and say, all right, we're going to go with our ace duo up top of Senga and Yamamoto. We got Quintana as our number 3, and it's an open competition with all these other pitchers. And you have a pitching lab that has been established that's now going to get an incredible mind and GM David Stearns to lead it. And all of these prospects are clay that can be molded into something really special. So as much as pitching has to be a priority for this team when it comes to bringing in talent in the farm system and for the MLB roster this offseason and beyond, I do think there's more in the cupboard than people will give the Mets credit for. Now, before we close the show, Jet Williams update in AA. Now played 4 games there, 3 at shortstop, 1 in center field. He's gotten on base in all 4 games and has multi-hit games in 2 of those 4. So really interesting to see how he continues to progress and how the Mets play all these guys together, because and playing Acuna at second base a little bit, but then they got him at shortstop tonight, and they moved Gilbert from center to left. So it'll be interesting to see what the Mets do with that down the stretch. But for now, that's going to be all for this week on Locked On Mets. I'll be back with another show for all you everydayers on Monday. As always, thank you for listening. Make sure you follow, rate, and review wherever you get your podcast. Follow me on Twitter, Finkelstein Ryan. Follow the show at Locked On Mets. If you want to catch every pitch of the Mets hometown broadcast this week, you can do so with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search Mets.